Well, good afternoon, Mr. Moss, and
Good
thank you very
afternoon,
much
Mr. Tristan.
for taking part in the live interview. So we're going to
Thank you
start.
for having me.
You're very welcome, and we're going to start right from the start with your place and date of birth.
I'm in Palm Coast, and I'm born October 11th, 1978.
Where were you actually born?
Oh, I was born in Holy Cross Hospital, Silver Spring, Maryland.
And what brought you to Flagler County and Palm Coast specifically?
So, growing up, since before I was one, I always visited Flagler Beach. My grandparents had a place down here at Ocean Beach Club 2. I think now it's called Ocean Breeze, or it's its name has changed just a little bit. So I visited all throughout my life, a couple times a year, come down here and see him. Just kind of fell in love with Flagler. That Flagler, the older, 80s, 90s, early 2000s Flagler. And when I got out of the Army in 2001, I decided to move down here and make it my home.
Beforehand, what was your career work before 2001?
For 2001, I was a intelligence analyst. I worked at the NSA in Fort Meade, Maryland
For how many years?
for 4 years active, 3 years active, 5 years inactive reserves. So it's 8 years, but the last 4 years, you're really just not doing anything unless they call you.
So you were listening in on foreigners.
It's a different kind of intelligence. It's a non-communications intelligence analyst. So if you think about like whales and sonar,
Mhm.
we didn't have Google Earth like we have now. We used like an oscilloscope back then, and we'd be able to see who's moving, what kinds of equipments, missiles, tanks, things like that, based on the feedback we'd get.
Huh. And starting in 2001 in Palm Coast, what did you do?
Okay, so when I first came down here in 2001, I was going to go work at Lockheed Martin.
In
I took
St.
a few months.
John's?
I'm sorry.
In St. John's County?
I think it was the office I was looking at was in Orlando at the time. I could be mistaken. Um, so I came down May, took a few months off. I was just gonna, spend a little time alone. And then 9/11 happened and there was a
Mhm.
hiring freeze. So I actually took a job. I was like, okay, I got to get something. I can't not work. I actually worked at Movie Gallery in Palm Coast. If you remember Movie Gallery,
Was that like a video
it
store?
was like a Blockbuster, but it's
Oh,
Movie Gallery. Yeah.
yeah.
So I worked there, helped them manage that store a little bit, and got my real estate license.
Was that all in the old Island Walk shopping center?
It is a pet supermarket now, I think, by Taco Bell.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then how long did you do that?
not very long. I went and got my real estate license. Not really a career
And
choice.
and then bring us up to the present, what you did in between.
All right, so I did property management and finance.
Mhm.
We had the crash back in like 2009, 2010. You remember everything was going bad. And I went to apply at the Flagler County Clerk of Court for a finance position.
Mhm. Yeah.
HR reached out. They said, "Hey, I really liked your interview, but we got somebody who's got a degree in finance." So we went with them. I said, "Well, if something comes up, it doesn't matter to me what it is. Cleaning the toilets, I'll take it." They
Mhm.
called me the next day and offered me a job in the recording department, which is where I started with the clerk's office. And from there, I went into board records. And after that, I was the records management liaison officer.
And then did you go into teaching?
I went into teaching from there. I went and got my degree. You have to have a degree to teach. And something I've always kind of thought about doing. People would always say, "Oh, this teacher really impacted my life," or "This one really did that." And I didn't have that person. So I thought, well, let me go try to be that person. So I've been doing that. I'm doing my 8th year now.
And where do you teach?
I teach at Palatka High School. I run their career and technical education business department.
You commute every day on 100?
Every day. Actually, I go through Hastings. I
Yeah.
used to
Put your
do
life
100
in your hands every day?
every day. It's about 40 minutes each way, but it gives me kind of time to gather my thoughts before I get to work and kind of like decompress, get ready for, the afternoon with my kids and stuff after that.
Right. And you mentioned you teach IT or
So the I do CTE business, and
mhm.
that includes a course called Digital Information Technology. It's really just an overview like 5,000 foot view of IT, hardware, software, applications, things like
Yeah.
that.
You're running obviously in the Republican primary, so you're a Republican, but have you always been a Republican?
I have. It's a funny story. Actually, the first time I ever voted for president, I was 17.
Who did you vote for?
I voted for Dr. Alan Keyes.
Oh, him.
So Alan Keyes, because I
In the
voted for him in
primary,
the
that was the primary,
primary,
right?
right? So I was 18 by the time the general election occurred. And he had done the speech at my graduation from high school.
Hmm.
And I kind of just believed in what he was saying. And I thought, I'm 17. They're going to let me vote in the primary because I was old enough to vote in the general. So I went in there, voted in the primary, and I voted for Dr. Alan Keyes.
So I forget what I remember Alan Keyes, but I forget what election it was. Who was running back then?
96. Man, I'd have
Oh,
to look it up.
96. Oh,
Yeah,
96. That was Clinton and Dole.
it was.
Right. Okay. Man. So you uh, how have you prepared yourself to be ready, to succeed from day one on the county commission?
Kind of just reminding myself, keeping an open mind. A lot of people, I think they go into the position, they go, I'm going to make decisions for, our residents, for the public. And to me, it's more like I'm representing them to do their will. Find out what it is that the people want, represent them through that vote rather than just going, I think this is what's best for you. Actually speaking with them, remembering that I'm really elected to serve those people.
Mhm. Um, how did you decide to jump in? What led you to do that? Especially in the context of running against an incumbent, and Leanne Pennington particularly. What made you think, well, I can do a better job?
I see a lot of like analysis paralysis over there, workshopping things. I don't think every decision needs to be made hastily like this. Um, but let's do the research. If you're going to do the research and order the studies, let's not ignore the studies. Um, when our CFO came and spoke about the gross overspending, I was kind of like, we have been overspending. Our budget is outgrowing, our government and our budget is outgrowing population and inflation. Um, there's probably an issue there. So let's take a look at it and keep as much taxpayer dollars in their pockets as we can rather than wasting it.
You do think you could do a better job than Pennington?
Yes.
And where is the flaw in Pennington?
I don't really like to call out flaws in people. If they want to do that for me, that's fine. But like I said, the amount of time that they spend to make a decision or go against what the research has shown them, not a fan. Losing the institutional knowledge, that's crazy to me, getting rid of people that have 30 years of institutional knowledge
Such
in
as
the county.
such as
Oh, that would be like, Heidi Petito, a couple people, yeah.
yeah. But you're not opposed to workshopping issues.
Oh, absolutely not. No, you've got to workshop the issues. A lot of times these questions will come up and people don't want to take the time to research it. And really, everything needs to be a data-driven, research-based decision.
Speaking of flaws, what flaw would you say you have? Um, how that might interfere with your work on the commission?
I don't know that it would interfere because I kind of have, stops in place to keep them in check. But I tend to want to solve things really quickly. You look at a problem, here's a solution, let's do it. Um, that's the reason that the research and data driven decisions are so important. It helps me to like slow things down.
And how do you handle a misjudgment? If you've made a mistake, what do you do next?
Oh, yeah, you have to accept the responsibility, look at it and move on. Like some people will make, they come up with a program and they're married to it because it was theirs. Well, we do the research, the mission, the goals, the objectives, the strategies, the tactics, and then we implement it and forget about it. Well, it should be fighting for its life every year.
Hmm.
They're leaving off the evaluation piece. So evaluate it. Is this program serving what we said it was going to serve? Is it effective? Do we need to make tweaks? Do we need to make changes? Um, yeah, but if the evaluation says it's not good, maybe we need to move on to something else.
Who do you admire in office today? Any of the local governing boards?
And there's a few people that I admire out there now. As far as the county commission's concerned, I was always like and these aren't all my party, but I was always a fan of Frank Meeker, George Hans, Nate McLaughlin. Those were like kind of my guys back then. Now I think our constitutionals are doing a really good job.
But aside
Uh,
from yeah, I understand that. I mean, the
yeah,
constitutionals, it's
yeah.
a fair example. But I'm very interested in knowing who you think is a model of leadership working today on governing boards where you have to deal with others.
But yeah, I think Tom does a great job. I think Shelly does a great job. I honestly think Jay does a great job.
But
Katie does a great job. I think Rick, I think all our constitutional officers are really doing a good job.
I mean, aside from them, I mean, on governing boards, on county commission, school board, city council, who
Um,
who stands out in your eyes as a model of, you know, leadership?
Man, it's tough. I like Dave Sullivan. I think he's got good ideas. I just think he got shut down a lot. I
Okay.
think there's a little less. I'm a fan of having a board that's maybe a little more amicable than our current board. Yeah.
Um, what grade would you give the current county commission?
Probably a C. Um, again, the budget's outgrown our population inflation, the loss of institutional knowledge from directors and county administrator. I think they've made some mistakes. I think some people wanted them, but they were just outnumbered.
Other than that, like, is there a specific example you might point to where it would justify a C, which is a pretty mediocre grade?
It's pretty mediocre. Well, I mean, Pierre, if you're making $100,000 a year and you're spending 150, that's like a C. So if we're overspending, where we could be keeping some of those tax dollars in the pockets of the populace of the people, um, yeah, I think that's a pretty big misstep.
But where are we doing that? We're going to get into some of those numbers, but
It's
specifically,
going to take a lot of research to kind of figure out, like, hey, exactly where. I've been to some of these workshops, and they asked the interim county, hey, what 10% would you cut? And they came up with like two departments. Like, we could lose a lot of money here. Um, I think we need to audit every department.
but there
Why
are
would I
every
just
year.
lose 10% of the budget with one department so that we can shift that money into two other buckets and still keep spending it? I think we need to look at where all the spending is happening and make a decision based on that.
But can you point to an example of waste?
I'd want to look at it a little further to be able to give you that direct answer.
How fair is it to say, oh, well, there's waste and I'm running because I'm going to help stop it when you can't point out where that the problem is?
Well, I think well, there's only a certain amount of things that we have to do that are required by our government.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to call out or disenfranchise somebody because our government is paying for, I don't want to say pet projects, but kind of like pet projects. There are a lot of places where, excuse me, the government does not fund a humane society, right? Some of these things can be privately done and maybe done better. And I'm not saying that's the specific example that I would go, hey, let's get rid of the humane society. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think we could stick to our core responsibilities rather than funding everything. I think there's a better way to use public-private partnerships, try to get more of a tax burden on the businesses that move in, attract them rather than on the taxpayer.
The Humane Society, of course, is its own private
Yeah,
nonprofit, and the county contracts with it.
right.
And what do you think about the county and the city's idea of joining animal control services jointly, which would not eliminate their need for the Humane Society or possibly another shelter? What do you think about that merging plan that they're working on?
I think that there's a couple times where emerging plan could be really good. You look at it, we don't have city police for, Flagler Beach and City of Palm Coast and Marineland. We don't have those separate entities. The sheriff kind of takes care of all of it, obviously
Flagler Beach
through
does have its
contracts.
own police
Flagler
department.
Beach does,
Yeah,
yes. Flagler Beach does have a police department. I meant to say that all of our cities do not.
right. But you're okay with that plan on animal control that they're
I
working
have I have not read over that plan, but that's something that would have to look at and make sure. Like I said, it's got to be a research-based, data-driven decision. If I haven't done the research, I really don't want to speak directly to it.
on? Is there um, an example, a couple of examples where they have excelled?
I think we're doing a pretty good job with maintaining like our land. I don't see them pushing for like data centers and getting rid of all. Flagler is very unique. We've got the country, we've got the beach, we've got natural estuaries that are just absolutely beautiful. I think they've done a good job protecting some of that.
And another example?
No, that's the
No.
one I'm going to come up with for now.
All right. What are a couple of goals that you agree with that the county commission is doing right now?
A couple of their goals that I agree
Yes,
with.
their strategic action plan, their so-called strategic action plan. Like, what are a couple of ongoing priorities that you agree with?
Mm. Oh, sorry.
And
I don't know. I don't know what they're doing that I agree with. I think it's important that we do our beach renourishment. I think it's important that, like I said, protect our good lands. The beaches provide a lot of extra tax benefit for us. I think
yeah,
we're doing good with that stuff.
there's going to be a question on that specifically.
Okay.
Are there a couple of goals that you disagree with?
Not necessarily their goals, but I've heard people on our board say things like, hey, I've got a track record of lowering your taxes, right? And my taxes haven't been lowered. I'm sure you look at your tax bills over the last 10 or 15 years, not one time has it gone down. To lower taxes, you have to go past rollback rate, right? So if we could lower to get to rollback, if that's 1.4 mils, let's say, and you lower it zero point 0.1 mil, that's 1/14th of just keeping taxes flat, 7%, that's a failure. Um, and to say that you have a track record of lowering taxes when your goal should be to lower taxes and you're not, I just think that's a mistruth. For me, it's more, let's be transparent. Say, hey, we did our best, but we just need all this money rather than saying you got a track record of lowering taxes.
Just since you mentioned if I looked at my taxes have actually, I'm giving all of my local government agencies about
Yeah.
30% less in purchasing power than I did in 2010. So my taxes have actually gone down
Mm.
they've stayed level in real terms. They've gone down about 30% in inflation adjusted terms. Until,
I was on ad valorem taxes.
yes. Yeah, I'm
My
paying
ad
$2,000
valorem taxes have
today.
not gone down one
I'm,
time.
I'm paying $2,000 today. I was paying $2,000 in 2008. In a 3,000 square foot house, uh, brand new house in 2008, which is kind of ridiculous because,
Yeah.
I'm paying less today. So you were saying, well, my
Yeah.
tax
Well, I
are
bought in
going down.
2012 and I'm paying more. I mean, I just sold the house, but currently paying more every single year over the last 10
You
years.
were homesteaded and you were paying,
Yep. Homesteaded.
and
Bought in 2012. Every year my taxes went up.
so how will you vote on the amendment this November, the Homestead Amendment?
It's a tough one. Um, you hate to tell people, hey, if you get rid of the homestead, I kind of think we got to see how it's going to shake out a little bit before we really make hard and fast plans. But like, let's say I took 80% of your budget. I think that, and the research, I'm trying to just remember it now. Like I said, I'd like to be just looking it up as we're speaking. Um, but I want to say the number was like 80% of our uh, Flagler County government budget is paid for through ad valorem taxes.
Well, it depends what we're looking for. The ad valorem, the property taxes account for the majority of the general fund.
Yeah, the
But
general fund.
there's many other funds that are
Yeah,
not affected by it, and the general fund pays for law enforcement, public safety, parks,
fire rescue. Yeah,
um, public works, a lot of the things that directly affect us visibly every
right.
day. That's what's going to take the big hit.
It is.
General fund is about, I think, what, $116 million today. So that's the total revenue in the general fund. Not all of that is property taxes.
Right.
A lot of it is, but it's going
A
to
lot
take
of
a
it
very
is.
serious hit, like, you know, 20,
Right.
possibly more than $20 million. So um, where are you if you were to vote today?
My concern is that if they do what they're doing with ad valorem, they're just going to go, hey, we have to make this money up somewhere else. So let's, just for sake of argument's sake, nobody pays ad valorem taxes anymore, right? We're just going to wipe them out. I feel like they're just going to replace, like, let's say I'm paying 5,000 for taxes. They're going to replace it with 5 or 6 other fees that are going to cost me now $6,000. So ad valorem is kind of the thing that we know. We know how that's going to work, right? It's been working. We don't have debt. We're not
Mhm.
the city of Palm Coast. Um, so ad valorem's been working. And to say, hey, we're going to get rid of it because we want everybody to have that cash. And trust me, I love it. I love the idea of paying no tax. I think that'd be awesome. But I like our schools. I like our roads. I like our safety. I love all those things. And in this day and age, taxes is what pays for it. So it's something that I'm still looking at. I got to tell you, I'm kind of opposed to it. Like if I'm leaning for it right now, I'm opposed to it.
You mentioned, debt. Just to be clear, Palm Coast and the county, neither of them have debt based on the general fund. They
Yeah, not on
both,
the general fund, right?
but they both have debt from special funds. They've
Yep.
taken out debt for other things that are not backed up by the general fund. Just to, uh, um, how do you think they will make up the loss? Let's assume it passes. How do you think, and you mentioned like it's going to be a lot of people say it's going to be a tax shift. So how do you think
Yeah, that's exactly
county?
what it'd be. Kind of like when you move certain funds from the sheriff into this fund, or not necessarily the sheriff, but if you're spending the same money but from a different bucket, it's you're still spending it.
How do you
And
think
if
they
we,
would make it up?
I think they would come up with fees,
Mhm.
user fees, special fees, assessments.
Would they have a
I don't
choice?
know. I don't know what they're going to do. I think we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. I think we got to see what happens, see what shakes out, and make adjustments from there. We're going to have to do it. It's going to be a tough time, but that's where the research, data-driven decisions. We're not the first people to face issues like this. I mean, this specific one, sure. Um, but people have done it. People have done it well, and people have done it poorly, and that's free to look at. We don't have to even pay for you know uh, a survey for that. We could just do the research ourselves.
So you don't see them sort of just doing nothing. You do see that there's going to be a shift and that they will come up with other means of funding what they're funding today.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be multifaceted. I think you're going to look at cuts, right, and then you're also going to look at other fees.
Hmm.
My concern is just that I don't want the other fees to end up costing the people more than the ad valorem that they're saving. Do you know what I mean?
But we don't know that right now.
We don't. We don't have that information yet. No.
The commission has often flirted with, not often, but a couple of times in the last several years, with the sales tax, an increase of half a penny. Where would
Right.
you be on that? And you can address the question both whether the amendment passes or not, because they've considered it even before the amendment
Yeah.
question.
I think that we're one of the only small counties with the small county that isn't using a half cent sales tax. I when I'm talking to people about half-cent sales tax, where do you like to go shopping? And I get answers like St. Augustine, Daytona. Well, you're paying it. You're just paying it to them.
Mhm.
So if they go shopping in Volusia County, they're paying it. they go shopping in St. John's, they're already paying it. Um, I'm not completely opposed to the half cent. I just think we need to really take a look at it and see if we're going to need it. Maybe that would be a good option for beach renourishment. I think there's a couple ways to look at it. No, but it has to make sense. We got to make it make sense.
Do you see that as a tax shift if the amendment passes?
I think that it would be harder pushed for if the amendment passes. I think that they say, hey, let's look at this half cent. Now, it does have positives to it because it's not just us that pay it, everybody that visits. It's offset. I believe the research I did said it would be offset by about 30% from out of towners, out of staters that also spend money here.
The CFO Blaise Ingolia, when he came here, you heard his claim that
Yeah.
that this county wasted $59 million over 5 years. Do you take that claim at face value?
No, I think it's a great headline, right, for him. Hey, we found the biggest wasteful spender. Um, but the research I was looking at, and I looked at this weeks ago, and I don't want to misrepresent or misquote it, was that it was a little more than half of that was actually wasteful spending, which is still a ton. But some of it is, like I said, they shift money from one bucket to another bucket, and now it looks like it's the county's budget. Like I think the sheriff had some of his budget was shifted into there, so it looks like the county overspent it when it was the sheriff's money that was being spent. Not that he overspent, just that the money moved from one budget to the other.
Are you talking about the 911 absorption by the county absorbing the 911 staff and system? Because it used to be under the sheriff, now it's under the county. Is that
It
what
could
you're
have
referring
been
to?
that. I don't want to misrepresent it.
But if there
It
is
could be that.
if it was half the 59 million, we're still talking.
No, half. That was just one example
No,
of half the
right.
15.
But to
Yeah.
go back to your earlier point, that still $30 million in waste, but like,
Oh yeah.
well, but where? Like, what is there one example? Uh,
Where the waste is,
yeah,
according to Blaze, we're just spending way too much money.
but
Um,
I know, but
and I
we
look at it and I see that personnel is the biggest part, right, of anything. The people are what matters. And I look at their income and their salaries, and they seem to line up with other places. I don't know if we've got, duplicitous jobs out there. Like you were talking about earlier, maybe combining forces with
Mhm.
cities and counties.
Yeah,
Maybe there's an answer there too. But I don't think it's going to be a one thing fix all. I think there's going to have to be audits and look at everything, and maybe we put five things in place to get us where we need to be, especially after this ad valorem thing goes through or doesn't go through.
but I'm not hearing of an example of waste.
I don't know. The numbers I looked at, I look at the sheriff's office, um, and I looked at 20 years ago, officers per capita, and today officers per capita, and it looked like he's staying in line with population. I don't know what that shakes out to over the last few, but I don't think, like I said, I think our constitutional officers do a great job paying for their stuff.
All right.
I think we're paying for things maybe we don't need to be paying for, or maybe we need to revisit some of the public-private partnerships we're using.
Like,
Um, I'd have to look at it. Like I said, it needs to be research and data driven. I told you my flaw was to just tend to go, hey, let's fix it and run right down there and get it done. But no, it's going to take a fair deal of research.
I agree, but I just don't want to sort of leave it hanging that we're often saying, oh, well, there is waste when we can't actually show a single example of waste.
Yeah, it's something that I would have to look at.
It's got to be like
Like
one
I said,
example somewhere out there.
no, I'm not going to disenfranchise anybody and say it's you before I've done the research. No way.
But you are willing to say we're wasting.
I'm willing to say that Blaze said we're wasting, and I think he said we're wasting more than is actually being wasted. Yeah,
Yeah. What services would you consolidate between the county and the cities?
I'd have to look at it and see what lines up and what makes sense. If it doesn't make sense to consolidate those services, I'm not going to say let's do it just to save money. especially if it doesn't save money. I think all of it needs to be done to try to keep as much taxpayer dollars in the taxpayer's pocket.
Is there a
But
potential for consolidated services that you see?
I'm sure there's a potential for consolidated services.
Mm.
It just has to make sense. I don't have a specific example for you, Pierre. I'd have to really look at it.
The environmentally sensitive lands program, you're
Mhm.
familiar with it? So it's been on the books since the late 1980s. It's going to come up for renewal during the next term.
Yeah,
If you're elected, you're going to be responsible for either agreeing to put it on the ballot for renewal or not. But so the questions are: would you agree to put it back on the ballot for renewal? Would you want to, the levy right now is 12.5 cents per $1,000 in assessed value. So basically a house, a $300,000 house with a homestead pays $31.
right.
Would you be willing to raise that a little bit to maybe 20 cents or 25 cents? And then the final question is, would you want to change the mission of the ESL? Right now, it's just environmentally sensitive lands, but the definition does not include the beach, for example. Would you want to
Right.
expand the definition so that it could pay for things like beach renourishment, for instance?
I'd have to look at the fund for that, see if it's needing to be raised. If I look at it and it says, hey, 12.5 cents isn't enough. I mean, if 12.5 cents is $31 a household and you upped it to 20 cents, it would be, 42 cents a household or something like that. Um, or I'm sorry, $42 a year. I misspoke there.
Sorry.
So yeah, is it an option to go, hey, that has to go up? Yeah, but it kind of depends. Is it going to need to go up? I didn't even consider that as an option to expand it, like you had mentioned for beach renourishment. I hadn't even thought about that.
Couple of commissioners have raised that possibility, including Kim Carney. She said, well, maybe we can redirect the
Some
ESL
of those funds.
to include the beach. But you're supportive of ESL, right?
I
Just
do. I love Old Flagler, and I love having our land that's not all built on, even though they're doing the westward expansion.
yeah.
Um, I like having our land be land and not blacktop everywhere.
So speaking of the beach, Flagler County has a beach management program. It did develop a management plan, but it's not funded. So essentially, it's not really a plan as long as it's not funded. Um, Do you agree with the fact that the plan that Heidi Petito presented was eliminated? Um, and what would you propose as an alternative? How would we fund this beach management plan?
Well, like we had said, maybe the ESL, maybe the half cent. Sorry, I've got maybe the half-cent sales tax could help it. Um, Heidi had a lot of institutional knowledge. I haven't looked over that plan, to make sure that everything lines up with my way of thinking.
With the
Um,
Petito plan, you didn't, in other words, you haven't looked at the Petito plan when it was
I,
presented?
I did not look over that entire plan. No,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar enough with it to speak about her specific plan. Um, the fact that Heidi came up with it makes me think it's probably pretty good, though.
I take it you didn't agree with the way she was semi-fired.
No,
How would you have handled that situation?
a little more amicability on the board. I think that they lost 3-2. I think some people were getting a little catty, and if I were on the board, she would still be there.
Would you have used that word caddy had the three board members who voted her out been men that acted the
Yeah,
same
some
way?
men can be absolutely catty, Pierre, 100%. Yeah. In this instance, maybe it was. Oh, sorry, my phone's sliding. In this instance, it may have been moved around a little bit, but yeah, men can absolutely be catty.
Would you have not fired her? In other words, would you have, kept her on,
I would have
basically doing
absolutely
her
kept
job?
Heidi on. Yeah.
Okay. Um, the beach management plan that she had proposed was projecting a need of, as I recall, the range was between 10 and $15 million a year, somewhere in there. How would you possibly raise that without the sales tax, for instance, uh,
Yeah,
and without possibly some of those special taxing districts that early on in the interview you said you're not too thrilled about.
I'm not thrilled about them, but they may have to happen, especially if this happens with our ad valorem taxes. Um, could you repeat what it was you were saying to me, Pierre? I kind of got
Just the
sidetracked.
if the beach renourishment or protection plan were to cost between 10 and $15 million a year, how could you possibly fund that without a special taxing district, the sales tax, and other revenue sources?
I don't think there's a great answer for that. I don't know that it needed 10 or $15 million. Like I said, I hadn't looked over that plan.
Okay.
I don't know if money can be shifted from other places. You had mentioned the ESO, maybe Carney's on something. I don't know. I'd have to really look at it. I'm not well enough versed on that to speak on it.
The sheriff's budget you mentioned a little
Mhm.
bit ago, um, it it has actually outpaced population growth. It has increased 87% in the last 5 years, although the county's population has increased 22%. Fire rescue has also increased, along with emergency management, 80% in that time span, even though the population was 22%. So and the crime rate is very low. How
Yeah, the
are
crime
those
rate's low.
increases, how are those increases defensible or sustainable?
Well, over the last 5 years, I'm not versed at it. I think that might be a little bit of a narrow view. I looked at it over the last 20 years when I was looking at it because I was seeing people talking about it. Hey, why is he spending money on a helicopter? Why is he doing this or that? I looked at it over 20 years, and it seemed that our population and officers are the same now per capita from 20 years ago to today. I think the ones I looked at were 2002, 2005, 2025
Mhm,
were the two numbers that I was looking at. Pardon me. And his budget seems to be in line as far as personnel
mhm.
are concerned. Uh, the same amount of officers per capita. I think that's the biggest part of that budget. We've got new technology that they've got to spend, things like that. I didn't look over Sheriff Staley's budget to be able to say, oh, why did he spend this money here? I didn't look at that.
You're saying that there was a need to catch up with ratios that were not sufficient over that
No, I
period
think
of
that
time?
if we've been a safe county for the 20-year span that I'm talking about, and I don't remember what the number was, but one officer per this many people.
Mhm.
And now we still have one officer per this many people, and it's about the same. I think that he kept up with it well.
Um, the helicopter that you mentioned, did
Mhm.
you see talk about consolidation? He did buy the helicopter, and some of
Yes.
it was paid for by the donor, the lawyer. But would there not have been an option to go 24 hours with Fireflight and save a lot of operational money rather than have two helicopters to operate and to staff?
Yeah, I didn't look at the specifics as to why, but that was my first thought. Was like, why did we need another helicopter?
Hmm.
I didn't dig any deeper into that. I just kind of looked at it and thought, the sheriff said he's been doing a good job for so long. He must have just had to have it. I didn't look at it and say he's overspending, but maybe he did. I didn't think we needed another helicopter, but the sheriff did.
Yeah. The county airport, it's unquestionably uh, an asset economically,
Yeah.
but it's also for its surrounding neighborhoods. There's been recurring complaints about the noise. The flight schools, a couple of flight schools operate out of there, and they complain about the noise, the pollution. Is there anything that the county can do to help them out?
I'm going to say something that might not be a popular opinion here. Um, and I've talked to some people that live out there, and they are not fans of the county airport. But the county airport was there. Every person I've talked to, the airport was there before they bought their house there.
Mhm.
I just, you buy a place behind a restaurant, it's going to smell like food. You buy a place at the airport, there's going to be noise, right? I hear their planes from here, and I'm in Matanzas. I couldn't imagine purchasing a place over there by the airport, but they made that decision to live by the airport. Maybe the noise pollution's just gone up. Maybe it was, 20 minutes a day, and now they feel like it's an hour and a half a day. But I think flight school is a good thing. I think it's great that we've got that opportunity for people right here in Flagler County. To
Mhm.
me, if you don't want to hear the flight noise, you can not live by the airport.
Yeah.
You know,
So no changes as far as the airport is concerned.
no, I think the airport is doing a good job.
Well, that brings you to the last question, which is your legal background. If you've ever been charged with a felony or a misdemeanor anywhere in the state, the
The
country,
country, yeah, the world, no,
other than a speeding ticket, or well, you were in the military,
I was.
so you might have been abroad. Who knows? So yes, the world, or faced any kind of civil action other than a divorce, but including bankruptcies. Any of that?
No,
So completely clean.
I'm clean. Yeah.
And
I teach. They kind of look at it too. And the
that's right.
security clearance I held when I was in the military was a TSSCI. So, like, yeah, I had to go through all the background checks and the lie detector tests and all that. Yeah.
And have you faced any investigative or disciplinary actions within your jobs,
No,
within your disciplines, like internal affairs investigations,
no,
anything like that, or professional associations that might have sanctioned you for one thing or another, anything like that?
nope. I've held a teaching license, clean. Real estate license was clean. Like, I never had anything like that.
Very
No.
good. Well, that brings it to the end. So I very much appreciate the time you took, and we'll wish you best of luck in the next few weeks, and
Thank you, Pierre.
speak again at some point. So thank you very much for taking the time.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
All right, you're very welcome. So,
Have a great day, Pierre.
thank you.